Hey friends, over 60% of you are listening to me right now on an Apple product. iPhone, iPad, iTunes. I need your help. The truth is, Apple will make this podcast more discoverable to new listeners the more reviews it has. So I'm here asking you to take a moment and leave a review. If you've gained any value from this podcast, the greatest thing you can do for it, besides spreading the word and telling friends, is leaving a review. It's real simple. If you're on your phone, head over to my podcast page within the Apple Podcast app and leave a review. Or if you're on a computer, you can head over to my podcast page within the iTunes app. That's it. That's all I ask. And if you have other podcasts that you love, do them a favor and do the same for them. It'll make their day. Now let's get this podcast started already. How'd you enjoy your time in NOLA, New Orleans?
I loved it. It was the first time I didn't rent a car, and I was staying in the... Were you there for WrestleMania 30?
I was.
At New Orleans? So I don't know if you got a chance to go around and see the different wards. I always stay at like an Airbnb, but the 7th ward, which is where I was, is considered... It's one of the more... It's basically the further down the line you get. The 9th ward is the most dangerous. The 8th is the second most. The 7th is the third most. And so... I didn't rent a car because I wanted to just save some cash, get in some steps and stuff like that.
Sure.
And the person who owned the house said, "Do not go walking at night." But I went to that. I went to the Ring of Honor show and I took a Lyft, and it was 7 miles.
Yes.
But it was an $80 Lyft ride, and I was like,
Jesus.
Okay, well, yeah, I know. I was like, well, I got to save some cash. There was maybe 5,000 or 6,000 people there. I don't feel like it should have been that crazy surged. But it was, and then I thought, okay, well, the rest of this trip, I'm just going to walk everywhere. So, like, I walked to the Superdome and back. I walked to Monday Night Raw and back. So it wasn't overly bad. I think, like, I would rent a car in the future. I needed it in Orlando. I needed it in Dallas because everything was just too spread out. But
yeah.
I'm not going to go next year because New York is just too expensive to do anything. And I hope the following year that it's either, like, Minneapolis, or even better if it would be I don't know when the new Ram Stadium is going to be done in Los Angeles, but if it was down there, that would be really nice. But New York is just way too expensive to do anything.
Dude, I got to tell you, I've done, I don't know, let me see, 29, 30, 32, 33. So that's like 4 or 5, something like that. Anyway, I got to tell you, next year, and I've done the New York market. I've done 29 was in New York, and yeah, you're right. I mean, the prices are crazy. I know they're going to be, we're a few more years added, so it's going to be even worse. I'm probably going to drive up that Sunday and probably go just to the show and call it a day.
Yeah. Yeah, I might do the Royal Rumble instead this year because it's down, like the flight to Phoenix is really fast. It might be 2 hours, like maybe 2 hours.
Sure.
And I've got some friends that are near Phoenix, and it's at the baseball stadium, and I feel like that would be cool. Like I could go and see the hockey team. Like I think that would be maybe a better use, like going to do something like that. Or maybe I feel like Survivor Series might even be at Staples Center, which is an hour-and-a-half flight, so that would be really nice. So we'll see. It'll be something, but I don't think I'll be doing Mania next year.
Yeah, and there's probably some people that are listening that are probably like, what is all this wrestling stuff going on? Well, a lot of people don't know that you and I got introduced in a weird way through wrestling in some crazy way. We were at the same place at the same time, didn't know it, obviously. Tell the folks how I guess you found my page, and tell them how we got there.
Yeah, so I was at, I can't remember what event it was at. It was either
show.
WrestleCon or the Pritchard show.
Yeah.
And you had posted something on Instagram, and I think you must have either tagged the location or you hashtagged like something that was going on at, and I just searched the event.
Yes.
And I saw you there, and I was scrolling through, like, a few people like posted similar things, but I was scrolling through yours, and you started talking about weight loss, which is what caught my eye.
Right.
Because, I've been a wrestling fan since I think the first show I watched was like 1991 or 1992. And like,
Same
there's
here.
a bad connotation. Yeah. Like there's a bad connotation with wrestling fans and the way they act and the way they look and this. And so, but like, you don't find many wrestling fans that are going through like a weight loss struggle or a weight loss journey the way that you were talking about it. So it was kind of like really like the perfect storm of like, God, this guy's doing exactly what I did several years prior.
Yeah.
He's at a WrestleMania. And then I started following you and just continuing to watch, and then discovered, oh, he's got a podcast too. And so like all these things that we seem to have in common, but we couldn't be on more opposite sides of the country.
That is crazy how that works. So you're telling me that what I think you just said there was that I don't fit the normal mold of a wrestling fan, which must be why I have not gained any traction with my stuff yet. Maybe that's what's going on.
Maybe. Yeah. And I mean, I feel like I don't fit the mold. Like this coworker of mine, Alex, she's so funny. She said, I started this new company a couple of months ago, and I was telling her about how I was going to WrestleMania and everything. And she's like, I just don't think of you as like a wrestling fan. Like you like you're like changing sort of what I think about, wrestling fans. Like you're not weird, and I'm like, they're not all weird. Like that's not because when you get to know them, right? It's such like it's like when I walk downtown Seattle and like Comic-Con's going on or any of these cons, and people are like dressed in their attire and their cosplay. Like you just sort of make assumptions. I think that's all this really is.
Oh yeah, and you get that with wrestling fans too. I mean, you can tell, kind of when you go to some of these shows. You mentioned like WrestleCon, or you go to like Fan Access, and fans are dressed a certain way. They've got their Kenny Omega shirt, or New Japan, or Ring of Honor, or CM Punk. There's a certain stereotype of wrestling fans out there, so you can kind of pick them out. And I don't know. I figured the way I present myself is number one and most important. I'm presenting myself as me, which I think is you got to be you, got to be authentic. But I just think it also stands out because it's just not what you normally see. I'm like, wait a minute, that Roman Reigns guy isn't so damn bad. I think they're just not presenting him the right way. Wait a minute, what are you talking about? He sucks, and
right.
Oh
right,
God,
exactly.
That's crazy. So we were both in Orlando at the same time, at the same place. I believe, like you said, you followed me first, and then along the way somewhere, I think you messaged me, because this is usually how it works. And I just want to put this out there because I feel like there's going to be people that maybe they're listening and they follow me now and they listen to the podcast and they're like, this guy, he seems like he's such a cool guy. Why the hell hasn't he followed me back yet? Let me explain this to folks, because I am not one of these people that, I want to have 30,000 followers and I only follow 100 people. I am quite the opposite. If you look at my follow to follow back ratio, not that this stuff is super important, but I want to clarify, because what happens is people, they follow and they don't say a word. A lot of times they don't even like, which I don't know why they're following in the first place. It could just be robo people, but then they just unfollow because they're like, well, this guy never followed me back. Now, here's the thing. If you shoot me a message like Eddie did, Eddy Lindenstein, I'm going to emphasize that so I don't forget it later. Eddy Lindenstein messages me, or you comment or you like, and I know who you are. Like you've told me, I'm this person, then I'm going to follow you back 99.9% of the time, as long as you're not a Herbalife person or an It Works person that's going to try to jam your products. I like to follow back everybody that I possibly can. I believe I said this on your old podcast. This is still the same way I am today. It's just like, just send me a message or something. Tell me who you are. I stopped automatically following back because I got so much spam and garbage, and then it was just people that were just unfollowing the second I followed them back, which is kind of a shitty game, and I hate playing that game. So I just kind of pulled back a little bit, but like, you send me a DM like Eddy Lindenstein did to me, and we have like a back and forth, and boom, I follow back.
Which, by the way, I didn't even know that was a thing until you told me it was a thing. The thing where like people will add you, hoping that you add them, but then like they delete you before you, just to get, like, I had no concept that was even a thing until you told me, and now I can spot it a mile away. You know what I mean?
Dude, I haven't shared this story in the podcast, but because you brought that up, I think it's relevant here. I had some person follow me, and she went on and liked like probably 5 or 6 photos in a row, left like 2 or 3 really nice comments. I'm like, oh, this is nice. I follow her back, and she looks like a real person, doesn't look like a salesperson, and I'm, like she has a transformation photo. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. And the moment I followed back and all this, I mean, we're talking within 5 minutes, Eddie. She had already unfollowed me, unliked each photo that she liked, and deleted the comments.
Jeez.
Dude, people are ruthless, man.
No kidding. And it's just, it's for a couple of, like, I know that there was in the past few years, like there's a couple of companies that, companies, I say that really loosely, but like gear lines or supplement companies, something like that, they'd like write me a DM and they would say, hey, we want you to be an ambassador. And I would I'd fall for it, right? So I'd fill out their form.
Right.
So they're like, oh, well, this is kind of cool, right? I can add this to my, to my bio or whatever. And then I get a message from them automatically. Like it has to be a bot or an autoresponder or something.
Yes.
And it says that I have to purchase like $100 or $200 in their gear to become an ambassador and then sell their product. And I'm just like, no way. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Why would I do that?
Exactly. Why would you do that? I saw, I'll actually share this right here. I won't give out the names because I don't want to plug them, but on my Hard Work Always Wins account, I got this DM that I hadn't seen it because you know how people that you don't follow, it goes to like this other box. And
Yep.
I've been pretty bad about checking messages on that account because it's not as active. I need to get more active on it. But anyway, somebody sent me a message. I won't read the entire thing. It's like a freaking novel. The basis of was like, what's up? Hope you're having a good day. Where are you from? Thanks for following, which I didn't follow them. And then they said, did you receive my free book that I'm sending to all my fans? And the webpage link is in my bio. And so I didn't respond. Then about 12 hours later, the same day, they're like, I'm sorry to tell you this. I see you haven't replied to my message, and I'm going to take the complimentary ebook away as a consequence because you did not write me back, and I have a high volume of people that want to claim the book right now. But it's going to be for sale later, and if you check the bio in my link, you can go to the store and buy it.
Hustling. They just hustling. Hustlers.
Dude, I mean, it's crazy. And when I approached the Instagram thing, because I think, when you started following me, this is like around April, and I just was not super experienced in Instagram. I wanted to share my journey, obviously, which you saw, but I was not experienced in all this stuff. But over the past couple of months, in 2017, I started to get more smartened up to it, because people were just coming in with the fierce right hooks, just trying to sell me on everything you could imagine, dude. And I'm sure you get it too. Anytime you put the fitness stuff in your profile, which helps because it gets you more eyeballs on your message, which is what I do it for. But it's like, it's like people will just right hook you to death with what they're selling. It's crazy.
Yep. Yeah, no, totally. I totally see that. Completely. Yeah. Anytime that I'll put in, like, I don't use like the weight loss or anything like that hashtags very often anymore, just because like
Right.
it's not really the journey it's not the path I'm on now. It's a path I've been on in the past. But when I do ones like, CrossFit or weightlifting or something like that, then I'll start getting the product companies that are, they're making wrist wraps or they're making t-shirts, which, like some of them are cool and stuff, but I don't really like, there's just certain gear that I just really like wearing to the gym. I don't want like thick cotton t-shirts when I go to the gym. I don't know what material they're using. Right. So like,
Sure.
I have certain tank tops I like to wear that because I just sweat like a pig. And so, it's just it's just very specific, but I hate the idea of like, you're only liking my shit, so I'll go and buy your shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude, it's a mess. And I think the hashtag stuff is very necessary. Again, it's like I use it because I want to get more eyeballs on the message. First and foremost, because I think that I have a journey that might value people. They might learn something from it. I hope they do. That's why I do it. I want to share it with people in hopes of helping them. So doing the hashtags is to get eyeballs on what I'm doing, and maybe they can come and see what's going on. But the problem is you got all these salespeople, these sharks in the water that want to bomb you with the It Works and the Herbalife and all. It's just unbelievable. The people that have like the before and after with the Herbalife graphic at the bottom, it's like, well, when you drink this shake, like no. I've seen your account. You've been at the gym. You post all these gym pictures. That's what did it, not these dumb shakes that you're pushing. Just stop, please.
Yep. Yeah. I think like the whole idea. We talked about when you were on my podcast like 7 months ago about like supplements. Basically, how I said that I was in college and I'd have like student loans over like buying. I'd buy glutamine and I'd buy creatine and I'd buy all this other stuff. And over time, like it's really kind of amazing to me that in the last few years, the fewer supplements I've taken, the better my performance has gotten, to where now the only thing that I would have or may have is if I feel like I haven't had enough to eat, but I don't want to have quite a meal because I'm going to go gorge myself at dinner or something, I might have a protein shake, right?
Sure.
And then Saturdays before my really heavy lifting day, I'll have a Monster Energy drink, which you can make the debate, is that a supplement or not?
Right.
You're like, supplementing caffeine, yes, but people drink those things all the time, and I don't drink coffee or anything. So like, it just gives me the edge that one day of the week where I just need a little bit extra to lift heavier weight than I normally would.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a problem with using some of this stuff. I just have more of the problem where people say you're going to get results when you use it. If you don't use it, you're not going to get results, and that's where I take issue. So, but let's talk about it, man, because you were on a journey years ago. I mean, obviously you are. I mean, if somebody goes to your Instagram now, they're going to see you lifting a bunch of weights, looking like the stud that you are. But the fact of the matter is that at one point you were on a fitness weight loss journey, and talk about kind of your road to, where you started out and wanting to get on a journey to correct course.
Yeah. So there was a point in time when I was about 17 or so, and I got really, really heavy, but it wasn't just like it just happened. Like, essentially when I was a kid and becoming a teenager and was 14 or 15, I played a little league and I was good at it, and I would make all-stars and things like that. And then one season, like in all-stars, I was trying to make an impression with the coach, and I was pitching, and I changed. This is in the days of Little League before they changed the rules. Like, now in Little League, you have pitch counts, and there's like, if you started a game on a Saturday, you can't start for another week or week and a half or something like that. But back in these days, I would start almost every game. So if we had tournaments on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we'd play 2 or 3 games, and I would start 6 games over 3 days, which is like, you're almost asking for some kind of an injury. Like that motion of pitching a ball is one of the most violent motions that there are in athletics. And so, my arm was feeling kind of burnt out going into this particular game. So I changed my delivery to be a little bit more over top delivery. Like, think about how Tim Lincecum throws versus someone like a Randy Johnson or Dennis Eckersley or some of these guys. And so I was going over top because my shoulder, my elbow were bugging me. And then by the time that the games were over, it was almost like I just had like dead arm. Like, I couldn't throw anything. Thinking back, I think that was probably more of like a rotator cuff injury. Now, having the experiences that I've had with injuries and things like that, that's what I think was probably going on. But I just couldn't play anymore. And because of that injury, there wasn't really anything physical that I liked. I liked watching wrestling. I liked playing video games, and that was kind of it. And so I had a buddy that worked at Jack in the Box at the time, and he could get me free food, right? So it was 2 years of, I'll have the number 2 fried chicken meal or whatever it was with the fries and the, let's supersize all that stuff and everything like that. So it was like 5 days a week for a year, a couple of years. And the problem was that, I got teased a lot as a little kid for being overweight. And then I was getting teased again, for being overweight. And it's like, that stuff sucks. Like, when you're a kid and you think about, you can think about, now I'm in my 30s, and like, I remember getting made fun of as a kid and a teenager for weight problems. So for me, it wasn't so much that, I want to change my look or I want to lose weight because of health reasons. For me, it was like, I want to get a date, and I want to be able to keep up with my friends, and I want to be a better swimmer, and all these kind of different things. So I remember we were on a trip. My parents and I, we do like road trips every summer, and we took this 3 or 4 week road trip through the Midwest. And I just sat in the back of an RV basically and kept putting on weight. But on the way home, like the final few days, I was like, as soon as I get off of this thing, like, my life is going to be changed forever. Like, that's when I'm going to start my own journey. And I've actually got a big tattoo on my right arm. That's it's a big, like, it's a headstone, like an RIP headstone. And it's got like, it's like the elephant graveyard from The Lion King. Like, that's kind of how it looks. That's what I told the tattoo artist. And it says it's a 7/22/02 on it, because to me, like, that's the day that the big guy in me died. So I was about 235 pounds at 5'6". And I said, okay, I'm dedicating myself now. And from that, I stepped off the van, I got on my bicycle, I rode to the rec center, I got on the stair stepper, and for a long time, it was like I was dieting and I was working out 6 days a week. And in about 9 months, I lost about 100 pounds doing that.
Wow. That's incredible. I'll tell you what, though, I man, God, sitting here around 270, I would kill to be around 230, 240 right now.
I did, but how tall are you, Gary?
5'10".
So that's the thing. Like, 5'6" and 5'10" are a massive difference.
Oh, yeah.
So I was 230, 235, and I ended up getting all the way down to, I think it was 131 pounds was my absolute bottom. But that was then it was the other side of it, where now I don't want to say like too thin, but I spent so much time doing the cardio that I almost like overburned, and I didn't, I had no muscle tissue left in I was struggling to like get through days energy wise.
Right.
You have the flip side of that problem. And that's kind of when I flipped the script and thought, okay, I've lost enough weight now. Like let's get into some weights. And so that's kind of where that the origination story came from.
Sounds like you would have been a hell of a featherweight fighter, man. 135. You'd be taking on Demetrius Johnson, for crying out loud.
If I would have had the energy to do it. I think I find myself doing a lot better in that. What would be I'm like 175 ish now. What is it? Is
welterweight?
Is that a lightweight? Welterweight. Okay, that's right.
Either welterweight or middleweight. One of the two.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's welterweight because I think I've looked at this before. So I'm a much better welterweight than I am a featherweight for sure.
Yeah, I'll take welterweight any day. I always said that one day I'd like to get to 185, and that would be a nice number. But optimally, I probably would hit that goal and probably balloon back up to about 200 and live around 200 comfortably.
Well, you got to get to as far as the UFC and combat sports go, you've got your weigh-in weight, and then you've got your fighting weight, right?
Yes.
Because if you look at guys like when CM Punk went and did the weigh-in for the fight that he had last year, anytime McGregor does a fight or when Rousey was doing the weigh-ins, they look. I know a little bit about, because in my sport now you do like you're in weight classes. So like I'm in a weight class now. But people will, they do water loading, they do water manipulation. And a lot of times, like I remember reading stories about Anderson Silva gaining 30 or 35 pounds in time between the Friday weigh-in and the Saturday pay-per-view fight.
I believe it, dude. It's you take I'll just give you an example, a completely different example, but like my cheat day, I have a cheat day. And it's not uncommon to look and see a 10 plus pound gain, but it's not really 10 pounds. It's all this water and all the intake that, by the first day back of on plan, you drop 2 or 3, then, first day back at the gym, there's another 3 or 4. And then the next thing you know, you're probably back to right where you were. And then you go from there. But it's not uncommon to see that, at least on my end, 10 in a day.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like, I've done consulting. Like there's a service called Eat to Perform. It's a web, they've got millions of followers online, but I worked for them for a few years doing like sports nutrition coaching. And I would have a lot of clients that, they would gain 3 pounds or they gain 2 pounds in a week or something like that. And I would always have to explain, like, look, man, there's a lot that goes into this. Like if you had a high sodium meal the day before, or you didn't go to the bathroom the same way you did the last time that you weighed in, or your stress level was a little higher than it was the last time that you weighed in, like all those things can have this massive shift in your weight. Like in the bio, like the bioenergy in your body, you could be 7, 8, 10 pounds heavier. I mean, it's not something to freak out about. It's definitely about the long game and not about the short game.
Yes, this is something that I've tried to mention many times, and I've had people that have reached out to me that they're either on one of two sides. They're like, dude, you're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. Or they're like, okay, 2 or 3 months listening to me rant and rave about, the weight going up and down and stuff like that. Like, okay, now I see it because overall I've lost, X amount of pounds. And I'm like, there you go. I mean, yep. I've been in this for 15 months now, and I can tell that is clearly the case. It's like, it's definitely the long game. You gotta be patient with it. It's definitely not something that's going to happen overnight.
Yep, definitely.
So you mentioned weight classes with, so are you doing like shows and stuff like that with the lifting weights, or what's the story with that?
Yeah. So back in 2012, I got into CrossFit. Like, it was something I swore I'd never do because I thought it was really expensive, and I thought that it just wasn't my style. I was really liking going to so basically from 2002 until 2011, 2012, I would go to the gym, and I would, depending on what the time of the year was, I might do 30 minutes of cardio, all the way up to 60 minutes of cardio, and then I lift some weights, and then I'd be on with my day.
Right.
So my thought was like, CrossFit's very expensive, and it's only an hour class, and in most places in the country, you'll pay between $100 and $200 per month. And I just thought, like, look, man, I'm paying $10 a month at the gym that I'm going to, and this is fine and things like that. And I went in and I did a week-long class, and I got some exposure to that, and it was just like, hands down, it's a good investment for me. I think it's a lot of fun. It brings me back to being like a competitive athlete and stuff. And so in CrossFit, it's the whole idea is like these high-intensity interval type workouts where most of the time the cardio portion of it is only going to be 7 to maybe 15 minutes. On occasion, like once a month, you might have one that's 20 or 25 minutes, but like you're really like pushing yourself, your heart rate is at the maximum. But the usually before you do that, you'll do some kind of a barbell portion. It could be squats, it could be deadlifts, it could be clean and jerk and snatch, which is what I specialize in my sport. And so I did CrossFit from like spring of 2012 until December of 2013. And then in December of 2013, I went and worked out at a gym owned by the old, he was the Olympic weightlifting coach, like for the Olympics for the United States, John Thrush. And I went and lifted at his gym for a day and was around all the competitors that were there, people that go and, they're winning national titles and things like that. Just got to be a part of the vibe for a day.
Right.
And like I was hooked. So like that was December of 2013. And my entire mindset went from, I'm going to be this light, fast, very agile athlete into I want to be a highly athletic, strong weightlifter. And my body weight when I started doing that was about 160 pounds probably. So I was occasionally I would dip down to 150 pounds, like which is the 69 kilo weight class. We're on the kilogram scale as most of the world is.
Right.
But, whereas in the United States, we're on the imperial scale, but I would get down to like 150, 151 pounds for the 69 kilo class. But I just found that being above 160 tended to be where I would perform a lot better. And so I did my first competition in January of 2014, where you go to a venue and you get 3 attempts in the snatch, 3 attempts in the clean and jerk, and then that's it. And, if you make it or miss it, you get 3 attempts and you have to wear a singlet and you're out there in front of a lot of people and you look very vulnerable. And, but the way that I always looked at it, is a lot of friends of mine, they get very, very nervous performing in front of people. Like that's a big hang up for them. And they, they'll struggle in competitions because they can't, like mentally, it doesn't seem like they can really handle it. I always looked at it as, this is nothing more than a pay-per-view, right? I'm wrestling at the Royal Rumble, right? Like that's how I always thought about it. Because for a while there, I was competing every month, and so I would go on these very miniature 4-week weightlifting cycles. Now I spread it out a lot more. I might do 1 a year. I might do 2 a year. A lot of it has to do with being busy, but also like I think just giving your body some time to rest. And now I can do. I usually run cycles in I'll go 12 weeks on a cycle, usually once every 3 or 4 weeks. There's like a deload period where you're lifting lighter weights. The sessions are much quicker. And then once I do the competition or finish the cycle, I usually take 2 or 3 weeks off where I'm just, I'll go to the gym and I'll kind of passively work out for 45 minutes a couple days a week. But it's really the time to just eat some more food, spend some more time with my kids, take some walks, like take an hour and a half walk instead of going to do an hour and a half workout.
Sure.
And really just, enjoy life and not have it be so crazy about weightlifting. And I've noticed, especially in the last 9 or 10 months, that doing it that way has led to some astronomically better results than pounding the pavement day after day after day.
Yeah, I mean, talk about that a little bit in the sense of, you've reached your goals and, in terms of the initial weight loss journey, and talk about what that's like. Because a lot of the times when I'm having people on the show, we're in the middle of our journeys because we're still losing the weight. It sounds like you're where you want to be. So talk about, I guess, how you're maintaining, how you found the balance to, what you got to eat, the workouts you got to do, and to keep the body that you want. Talk about the maintaining aspect.
Yeah. So the toughest thing for me, cause I spent so much time in weight loss mode. Like I basically went from, so 2002 was when I started really getting into fitness and I dropped a bunch of weight. And then, when I graduated from college and I got my first desk job in 2008, I quickly put on 30 pounds or so, 30 or 40 pounds. Cause I went from working in a grocery store, and even though like checking, like being a cashier in a grocery store, you don't think you're burning a lot of calories, but A, you're standing the whole time, but two, like you are moving your arms a little bit. And then I would go and work out. Right. And I was young. And so my metabolism would just burn. But then when I get to sitting in front of a desk for 8 hours a day, it completely changed everything. And so for about a year there, I put on 30 or 40 pounds and I got all the way up to 190 or so. This was in 2009. And then I got back on weight loss and I got down to about 140 pounds or so.
Yeah.
And so I started CrossFit not long, a couple of years later. And I remember like the problem is that a lot of what CrossFit and weightlifting requires and powerlifting is like, you got to be able to move weight. And I couldn't bench press like 130. I have this great vivid story that I tell my buddy. I talk to my buddy Ken about this all the time. We used to work out a lot together, and he was spotting me for 135-pound bench press, which most people that do CrossFit should be able to do that for probably 5 to 10 reps if they're men that have been doing it as long as I'd been doing it by that time. And I went down for 1 or 2 reps, and I just couldn't push my way out of it. And I read a book about building like muscle tissue and getting more, putting on muscle mass and things like that. But it was a big, like working with my coach, it was a big mind fuck to go from being in weight loss mode for essentially the better part of 10 years to then having to change and shift gears and go to, I don't really care what the scale is going to say. I'm just going to eat the appropriate foods and lift the appropriate weights, and hopefully I'll be a better performer. So gauging everything that has to do with my health and my fitness around how much better did I perform this week than I did last week was a big problem. Like that was very hard to get over.
Yeah.
Needing to do that. And actually in the very, very beginning of doing all this, I did like a body fat test. You can go and buy what's called a hydrostatic body fat test, where you go, it's a guy with a truck, and they usually have them in all the pockets in the country, but you pay him, I think $50. And you get down to your bathing suit, and then you float in his dunk tank, and he takes your body fat percentage. It's essentially the most accurate way that you can gauge it. So when I first did it, the very first time, I was like maybe 13%. And then I went on this protocol for 3 months where I said, okay, I'm just going to fuel myself with food. I'll eat when I'm hungry. I'll eat post-workout. I'll lift a bunch of weights. I just won't really care. I won't weigh myself, none of that. I went back. I had gained 7 or 8 pounds, something like that. Which, cause they weigh you first, and I'm like, oh my God, 7 or 8 pounds. I'm going to be a lot fatter. And I ended up taking off 3.5% body fat. I was down to like 10.5% by this point. Which was, I was like, oh my God. So that was a big moment for me, because it changed a lot of how I felt about kind of how I wanted to take my life. I got a lot stronger. I got a lot more durable. I felt pretty invincible. Just as a person, it was kind of like just feeling like a superhero suddenly. And that's sort of how I felt. I mean, here and there, I've dabbled since then in like recording macros and using the MyFitnessPal and stuff like that. But I just find that when I do it, and I get too drilled into trying to hit a certain number, like of calories in a day, that my performance suffers. And ultimately at this point in my life, like the performance means more to me than what the scale says. So some days I might weigh in at 168 pounds, and some days I might come in and be 178 pounds. I gained 10 pounds on my last weightlifting cycle, but it took my lifts much higher. I mean, I added 35 pounds to my 2 lifts. That was something that was like a 2 or 3 year goal, and I did it in about 12 weeks.
That's incredible
for being able to lift. So it's like, that's the trade-off, Olympic style weightlifting, like it's very regimented. I train it 3 or 4 days a week, where it's like I'm doing snatch, clean and jerk, and I squat, and that's it. And I do it at different variables, and I do it in the garage, and I do it at my gym, and I do it with my coach. But, the main thing is that like I'm performance is what gets me to tick now, not the scale.
Yeah, dude, I've been on this kind of travel here in the last 2 or 3 months, where I've really dialed back the scale and things of that nature. It's like I hit the 100-pound mark, lost, and I said, okay, it's time to shift focus. I mean, obviously, I'm still fully committed to everything that I'm doing. Some of my strategy in the gym has changed. I've increased the amount of time I spend working on like weight machines at the gym, as opposed to spending time on the treadmill, for instance, knowing full and well that if I was somebody who was following the scale every week now, it would probably go up a little bit more often than it would go down on a week-to-week basis, because I'm not doing as much cardio. I'm spending more time now focusing on the weights. And so that was one of the things that finally gave me the excuse to divorce or break up with the scale, whatever you want to call it. And I feel better overall after doing this, because I explained this in a podcast a few weeks ago, but it was like I was treating every weigh-in like I'm in a damn UFC fight, and wife's like, well, I guess we can't eat this tonight because you got to weigh in tomorrow and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, this is just BS. Like, I lost 100 pounds. I'm not stopping going to the gym. I'm still going to the gym 4 or 5 days a week, no matter what. I'm still putting in max effort. I'm just changing the strategy as a result. And, I don't feel that I need to scale at this point in my journey, because I know that one of the reasons why I was using it was because not just to track, but also for the accountability. Well, if I slip up, if I skip 2 or 3 days this week, it's going to go up. So it's going to get me to go in every day. And if I eat McDonald's every day, which I haven't eaten in 15 months, then that'll make it go up. So there were reasons why it was in place. But now, dude, it's like I feel like a completely different person in a completely different place. And it's like I feel completely comfortable not using this scale anymore.
It reminds me of, and I know that you follow him now too, but back several months ago, I told you to follow that guy, Obese to Beast, John Glad.
Yeah, I follow him. Yeah.
And so he's at, I was just looking at this the other day. I think he's at like 650,000 followers now on YouTube.
Right.
And so the guy's built this crazy following, but I think I was one of the first 500 maybe subscribers to his page. And what caught my eye about him was the first couple of videos that he did. He shot him on a cell phone, and he was working at Starbucks at like 4 a.m, and he like didn't have any money, and he would go to the gym and he would do cardio basically for 60 minutes every single day, and there really wasn't any weights.
Yeah.
And then I've sort of seen that guy. He lost 180 pounds, I think, and he did it all, all natural, no weight loss surgery. There weren't any, he didn't do the wraps, the shakes, the pills, or anything like that.
Yep.
And then he started getting into lift. It was like this big fundamental shift where it was like he went from doing 2 weigh-ins a week to now I don't think he's really doing. He might weigh in once every month or a couple of months, like just for the sake, I think, more so of his followers who want to know what's going on. And I bet that he's probably put on 10 or 20 pounds from what he was at his leanest.
Sure.
But he looks so happy now, and he's lifting crazy weights, and he's having a blast, and he's got a great social media following, and he's making money doing what he loves. Like, that's awesome, right? Like he got invited to the Ellen show in 2015 or 16 and shared his story, and Ford saw it, and Ford gives him a brand new Ford Mustang GT simply because of his story, a $50,000 car. Like,
yeah,
I love stories like that because he went through the same kind of shit that you and I went through, and he had this big shift in a lot of how he would react to things and how he would do certain things. And like, now look at him. Like, it's awesome. I wish that I've posted messages on or comments on his Instagram pages before. Like, I'm a 32-year-old man. I shouldn't be like a giddy little schoolboy, but if he replied, I would totally be like a schoolboy because I think he's badass.
Yeah, no, we've had I've had some interaction with a small interaction. I'd reply to a story or drop a comment, and I've heard from him once or twice. He's definitely done some amazing stuff for sure. I mean, it blows me away. I don't know if he does a lot of podcasts, but I think he would make for a great guest at some point.
Yeah, I think he did. I think he just pretty much did the CrossFit one, and he did Barbell Shrugged, which is probably the biggest. I mean, it's for CrossFitters or people in strength conditioning. Barbell Shrugged is probably the platinum podcast. I mean, I bet that they're getting a couple hundred to a few 100,000 downloads a week.
Yeah,
and he was on to do those. But yeah, I agree. I think that I think the reason that I found him so magnetic when I first found him is that he reminded me so much of myself, like this, this young kid who's not really making any money, and he's, he loves doing like video content and things like that. But he's just trying to drop a bunch of weight and change his life. And, that's what you and I are doing, right? We're all into the same kind of shit. Like, it'd be awesome to get everybody together. And he lives in San Diego, which is, like, I'm in Seattle. San Diego and Seattle are not right next to each other, but it's a 2.5 hour flight. Like, if he said, hey, I'll do your podcast if you fly down to San Diego, like, I'd be on a fucking plane tomorrow. I think it'd be awesome.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think he'd make for a great guest. I'm sure that somebody like him that has more notoriety, they probably pick and choose, and I guess rightfully so, whatever you want to say about it. Maybe this is not one of the bigger ones. This is actually episode 46, I believe. So we're the podcast is growing. We're still trying to get the word out. And this is why I tell people, the greatest thing you do for my podcast, I almost stopped plugging all the, Amazon stuff and all this stuff. Like, at this point, I just want people to bring a friend in. I give full credit to, there's this other podcast I listen to called the MFCEO Project. It's hosted by Andy Frisella. If you're not checking him out, check him out. But he just tells people, hey man, bring me a friend every week, bring one friend to the podcast, tell them about it, tag them in one of my posts. Don't just tag their name and nothing else, like tag their name and tell them what I am, and bring a friend to the podcast. And I love that. So I'm starting to tell people now, bring a friend to the podcast, have them leave a review. And I know you left me a review. I appreciate it. But leave a review, because iTunes puts a lot of stock into that kind of stuff. And when you're getting numbers and reviews and stuff like that, that's what it's all about. And I don't do it because, I want 50 million people listening to the show. I do it because I think I have a message that I want people to hear. And I want to help people ultimately with the journey. So that's definitely why I say what I say on the podcast. I hope that makes sense to people listening.
Yeah, so it's funny you say that, because I didn't put much stock and value in the way that I felt about like reviews for podcasts for a long time was like, it's just, it's a way for the host to shine their ego, which, by the way, I don't think is a terrible thing to get some up leveling of the ego. But sure. But then I started to notice that, like, okay, I'm appearing lower in search results. Like, why would that be? And then I went back. So my podcast had been on hiatus since January. The plan was I was going to run 14 episodes, and then I needed to step away to my daughter was born. My second daughter was born January 12th, and I just needed to go and work on that and, be a dad again, basically.
Sure.
But I started to get a lot of things back together. I changed the name of it. I changed providers. I got a new logo done and things like that. And I was going back to iTunes just to make sure that all my episodes were showing up a few days ago. And I just got the nicest review from somebody. I have no idea who they are. I'll never be able to find them. But it was good to see. And so I recorded an episode this morning that's going to air tomorrow. But that's one of the things I did at the end was, hey guys, like, your reviews really, really do help. And somehow I went from third in the search results to now second in the search results when you type the Mind and Fitness podcast. So that's cool. I'm on the main screen when you type that, as opposed to having to scroll, which is good.
Yeah, it definitely helps. And that's what I try to tell folks. It's like, look, I'm going to stop peddling all my, Amazon and all this stuff. If you do me this one favor and, leave a review, because it actually, like, and I only say it, like, if you're somebody that listens week in and week out and you really like what I say, I mean, that obviously would be the reason why you would be tuning in every single week. Then that is the single greatest thing you can do, is just leave a quick little review and just tell people, hey, I like this speaks to me, whatever it is. And iTunes says, ooh, look at all these reviews. Let's just bump you up higher and higher and higher. And it helps get the message out ultimately. So, tell me about the podcast. I mean, obviously I was a guest on your podcast last year. You were probably 5 or 6 episodes in, I believe, when I jumped in on there, but talk about, the idea for the original podcast, why you rebranded, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So originally it was called the Eddy Knows Fitness podcast. And, the idea behind that, like, I've got years and years of experience doing consulting for, like, fitness consulting as a paid consultant. to work with people, particularly strength athletes and nutrition. But then, fitness is obviously, it's a big part of my life, but maybe even a bigger part of my life in the last couple of years was, I struggled with some like pretty serious health issues in 2015, 2016, 2017 around like, back problems and neck problems and, knee issues and shoulder problems and stomach problems. I mean, you kind of name it and it was happening. And
right.
I kept going around to try and find different doctors that had some kind of a cure for me. I couldn't figure out what was going on. I probably spent $10,000, maybe $15,000. If you add up the cost between imaging and surgeries and different doctors that I would see and different, things that I would have done. And I just couldn't figure it out. And I actually had given up weightlifting entirely. By the time January of 2017 rolled around, like I was ready to sell all my shit and just get out of the sport forever because I loved it. But it was like, I couldn't figure out what my health problems were. And I just wanted to focus on finding a cure for whatever was going on. And, I went another several months. I went to Montana. I had my neck operated on. That didn't help at all, other than sending me a big bill. And then in May, I went and I happened to get in with the head physician for the University of Washington football team. And she did a full exam. She looked at my imaging results, even the positive ones that said there was problems, like structural problems. And she said, I think that this is, I don't think this is like due to structure or an injury. I think this is due to stress. Like what's going on, like all the issues that I can see. So a lot of it was like, I had crazy muscle tension that was causing a lot of neurological problems, going on my back and my arms. And I couldn't feel my fingers sometimes and my hands. And like, that was just becoming too much of a burden. And I, a 30-year-old man, like doesn't deserve to live that life. And,
No.
So she said, think about your stress level a little bit. She had said, maybe go see a sports psychologist, or a psychologist. And she said, if none of that stuff works, you can come back and we'll look at, maybe putting you on SSRIs, which are they're antidepressants basically. And I was not into that idea, but I did go and see a psychologist and a sports psychologist. And what I learned from the sports psychologist and talking to him is that, so every pro team for every sport, every NCAA team, they all have designated psychologists that work for the team. And I talked to this guy who he consults for the University of Washington Huskies. And he said, basically, when I work with a high performing athlete, say a wide receiver who's used to having 10 grabs for 150 yards every game, and then he comes out for a game or a couple of games and he has 4 drops for 25 yards and no touchdowns, and he gets benched for a game or two. He's like, we need to spend basically 6 days of short-term psychodynamic therapy on that athlete in order to get him ready, even remotely ready, to be able to practice again or to play a game again. Because it just, high achieving people that are used to doing a lot of great things, the burden of not succeeding in something can somehow, it just ends up placing such an amazing amount of not only psychological stress on their system, but also manifests into like physical problems, like the mind-body connection is what it's called. And so for me, like suffering from stress issues, like being at work and being used to being a great performer and then struggling a lot in work, like I did in 2016, I kind of had a rough road in my career. And I think it was just a lot to deal with. And some people, that outlet for them for their stress and their emotional issues and everything, some people go and they do drugs, and some people drink a lot, and some people have crippling anxiety, or they have a lot of depression. But some people do what's called somaticizing, which means that they have sudden chronic back pain, or they have neck pain, or they have shoulder issues, or they have knee problems or stomach problems, or all these things. And I read this book by this guy, Dr. John Sarno, about the mind-body connection, and it was called Healing Back Pain. And I read it in 2 or 3 days. It was like a 300-page book, and he actually coincidentally passed away maybe 5 days before I started reading this. But it was like reading my life story in a book. It was like, high achieving, do-gooder, perfectionist, kind of has their way of wanting to do things. They probably, they want to be projected in a certain way, but basically, like on the inside, subconsciously, meaning they have no idea this is going on. Like they're furious about a lot of things, like that their careers aren't panning out the way that they hoped they would, those kind of things. And upon reading this, it was like such a drastic change in my symptoms that my pain level went from a 10 or maybe like an 11 on some days down to a 2 or a 3, like within a couple of days. And it really kind of just made me reevaluate a lot of things. I got right back in the gym, which is what he recommends doing. I went back to training weightlifting. So I went from doing nothing for 7 months to getting right back onto a weightlifting CrossFit program. And I prepaid for 3 months of membership to seriously lock myself in. To get back to doing what I love to do. I ended up quitting the job that I was working because I thought it was just contributing too much to that beaker of stress that I had. And when I started the podcast, it was originally going to be about like fitness and nutrition and all that, but I just found myself being much more interested in talking to people about their minds, not mindset, because I think that's too overly used, but the stress of their lives, where does the mind intersect with fitness and athletics and health and your life? Like, what's the intersection of that, which is where the rebranding of the Mind and Fitness podcast came. So I ended up having I had a 6-time regional CrossFit athlete on the podcast, and she started telling me about, when she has certain issues in her life that are highly emotional, she has a much higher likelihood of tearing muscles and having tendon problems and things like that. And then I talked to a psychologist on it. And then I talked to a #1 best-selling author on Amazon, Stephen Ozanich, and he was telling me these stories. He had 25 years of chronic pain issues, multiple herniated discs, spinal stenosis, all this stuff. And once he kind of grasped these concepts, he healed completely. The pain just vanished, and he's been pain-free for 30 years now. So that's kind of where the genesis of the whole idea came. And now I've sort of found this underground culture that is really all about the same idea. People that have been able to cure autoimmune diseases and all sorts of things from this same type of idea. And coming up in the next few months, like I've been in contact with the woman who's the executive producer for the Rosie O'Donnell show in the 90s. Like she's somebody that's healed. Howard Stern is somebody that's really famous. Larry David, the creator of Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm, he's somebody that he's been cured entirely from his chronic pain issues. So these are all people that I certainly want to get in touch with and talk to coming up. So it's just, that's the new side of me. And probably the greatest benefit that I found is that all these little aches and pains and perceived injuries that I thought I had in weightlifting and how frail I thought the body was, even as an athlete that competed, now just knowing from reading a lot of Dr. Sarno's materials and realizing how strong the body really is, like, it's sort of limitless. So when I go into training sessions now, I'm an animal, right? I'm squatting 330 pounds. I'm deadlifting 400 pounds. I'm snatching almost 200 pounds. I have a clean and jerk at 265, and I weigh 170 or 175 pounds. Like, I can do a lot of things that I didn't ever think was possible simply by getting a better grip on this kind of stuff.
Right on. And then so for people that want to find the podcast, I believe you said that it's launching tomorrow, correct? The new one? It's
relaunching tomorrow, but you can find archived episodes. The first 14 episodes are available on Apple Podcasts. They're on Audio Boom. I'm working on getting on some of the other networks, Google Play and iHeartRadio and things like that. But you can search the Mind and Fitness podcast. It's got a picture of me. I'm there. I'm in my garage lifting in it, but it's got a new logo, and the new episode starts tomorrow. It's probably going to be a blend of 1 to 2 short form podcasts per week, and then 1 to 2 long form interviews per month, to have people get a good blend of different storytelling that they can have. Because I used to do like one a week for an hour, whether I had a guest or not.
Yeah.
But I just found it very cumbersome to speak for an hour when there's nobody to talk to. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Dude, you've been around for this podcast since probably the beginning, and I think you could vouch as anyone could that's listened that long that this thing has drastically changed from what it was and what I learned, because my background was live radio and doing 2 hours or an hour and a half or whatever it was. Yep. And now I finally learned that, you don't have to force yourself to go that long. If you have 30 minutes of content, so be it. It's 30 minutes. And if you have a guest, like we're doing right now, it's an hour and whatever it is, it's crazy how that works out.
Yeah. I mean, the one that I recorded this morning, I think it went 9 or 10 minutes, like in full. And the main nucleus of it was here's the podcast. If you've never heard it before, here's the short of what it's about. And then I told a story about my back pain and neck pain starting to amp back up before my daughter was born, and how the death of a friend of mine showed me ultimately again that it's a stress and emotional issue, all these pains, because when he passed away and I grieved over it for the way that I grieved over it, the pain vanished. And that's a story that I tell in the podcast tomorrow. So that comes out at about 7 a.m. Eastern tomorrow.
So how are you like batch recording and schedule them out in advance? Are you recording the week of, or how? Give me the inside baseball on it.
So when I first started doing it, I wanted to do rapid fire, so I had evergreen content. I kept having this vision that we were going to go into like emergency labor with my wife, and so I wanted to have plenty of ready. And so they were scheduled usually about a month out, and they would come out on Wednesdays. And usually I would bank 6 or 7 interviews at a time that I could pop in any specific week, because we never talk about things that are timely. You know what I mean? Like, it's just really what's the evergreen content that you can post at any point in time that you want. And so now the plan is to do something similar. I think, especially for the interviews, I love, like, if I had a week where I did 5 or 6 interviews, I love that, because that's 3 months worth of interview content. And then I can record the short form ones, the day before, the day of, really whatever comes to mind. But I've got a long ass list of different things that I want to talk about that I think are going to hold some merit, and I think some stories that people will really like.
You got to look into the, I'm sure you're already looking into it. You're a smart guy. The Alexa, you got to get on that.
Yeah. Well, I heard you talking about it, and I do need to look into that, because that would be, that'd be awesome. We've got my daughter. She's the 3.5-year-old. She's in charge of reporting the weather to the class every morning. And so the last thing she does before she leaves is she goes, Alexa, what's the weather today? And then Alexa tells her, and then she goes to school and tells her classmates and the teachers. So,
that's fantastic.
So she's got it. Alexa knows everything.
Yeah. And I'm still getting smartened up on it myself. I'm still learning how all of it works with the wrestling pod, because that's a short form. The way I understand it, it's got to be the short form stuff. And using Anchor, which is what I use for the pod, for the wrestling pod, they have some sort of a way into that world. So I know it's already on the Home Pod. I know it's already on Google Home, and I think Alexa is it takes a couple of weeks, pretty much. I mean, I know getting on iHeartRadio took me 2 months. So some of these things definitely take time for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
So, no, that's cool though, man. I'm glad you're getting back into the podcasting thing now. Are you still doing your consulting and all that kind of stuff, or where are you at as far as that's concerned? Yeah,
I mean, I would do selective processes for certain clients. There's been ones that were calling me out of the blue in the last several months, even though I wasn't really being active with it, because I was kind of just focusing on some other things and other projects. But yeah, I mean, there might be room for a couple of clients if it serves right. Like, I wish that, and I'm sure there actually are people like this that exist in the world, but I would love to help people that are very overweight, have had injury, like chronic injury issues that they can't seem to solve, people that have been athletes in the past that for some reason have some kind of a medical issue that they just can't overcome and they can't get an answer to. And then people that are looking to, essentially utilize their diet and leverage their diet for being better in the strength conditioning world, whether that be powerlifting, crossfitting, or weightlifting, because those are all things that I have experience in, and especially the latter part, actually consulting and working and helping people with.
Right on. Now, if somebody thinks they fit that bill, how do they reach you? You have a website, or what's the story with that?
So it's either on, you can actually, probably the easiest way is just search Facebook for the Mind and Fitness Podcast. And I can be reached directly on there. I got a couple of products that are on there, like home exercise programs for people that, either they don't want to go to a gym or they don't want to pay for a gym membership. You can grab, there's one for like core and midline stability. And then there's one for full body stuff. They're designed to be 20-minute workouts 3 times a week. I did instructional videos for the whole thing that the buyer would get. But yeah, people can reach me through there for consulting services. But I mean, mainly I just love the idea of the podcast being able to reach out to people in a similar fashion that I was reached last year when it was the doctor who told me, hey, this is not an injury. This is stress induced. Let's talk about that, and being able to actually work through those issues, because it really did give me my life back.
That's a huge breakthrough, brother. I'm glad that you were able to discover that. Now, so for the folks, they can find you on Facebook. A lot of my people, as you know, are Instagram folks. So where do they get you on Instagram?
So the Instagram handle right now is at Eddy Lindenstein, which is obscenely long, but EDDY. It's EDDY and then LINDENSTEIN. And you can find me on Instagram there. Mostly it's like training videos and my kids, but there'll probably be more content for the podcast coming up too. And of course, if anybody has any questions about any of this stuff, they can shoot me a message. It's weird. Like the last time I did a podcast, which was with the best-selling author in January, probably once a week though. I still get messages from people all over the world. They might be in, I've gotten people in Japan. I've gotten people in Taiwan. I've gotten people in Singapore. I've gotten people all across Europe that have these chronic health issues that reach out to me and ask me questions. And it probably happens once a week. And I haven't done a podcast in 3 months, and I never paid for an advertising for the podcast. I don't know how they found me, but people end up finding me. I don't know. It's pretty cool.
It's mind blowing, dude. You never know who's listening. That's what blows my mind. It's like, that's why I tell people, I've had people approach me like, I'm thinking about sharing my story. I'm like, dude, do it. You got to do it. Because you never know who you're going to help. Everybody's situation is unique. I mean, your situation is very unique. I think my situation is unique. Everybody's got their own unique story. And so that's how you're going to reach more people with it, because there are people that have different unique things, and yours may be the closest to what they're dealing with, and they hear you talking about it and they're like, yeah, I didn't think about this or that. And next thing you know, you've just brightened their day, or you've given them some kind of mind-blowing insight that they never thought of, and they're trying X, Y, and Z, like you're talking about, trying this and that, and then it changes your life. I mean, it's crazy.
Oh yeah. I mean, if I could take back not just the thousands and thousands of dollars spent on medical treatment and mobility tools that I didn't need, but even just the year of my life back, I would love to have that time back. And even the anxiety behind, I'm having, I'm like this, it's gross, but like, the times of my life where I've had like big time stomach problems that I think are like isolated flus. And then I go to the doctor and they say, this isn't the flu and it's not food poisoning. So we don't really know what it is, but I can't stop throwing up. Like,
yeah,
it's along the exact same lines. And I wish that I could have had the anxiety of those events back, but now, it's not like I'm on the second half of life by any means. And so now I've got some tools to carry with me for the next, cross my fingers, 70 years.
Hell yeah, man. That's what I'm talking about. I wish you well in your journey, Eddy. I'm so glad we were able to connect and to do this. And I wish you all the best on the pod and the further discovery of everything, man. It seems like you're on the right track. It sounds like you're, if not where you want to be, damn near close to where you want to be, and that life is good, man. I like to hear that.
Yeah, it's great. Thanks, Gary.